Okay, let's dive deep today. We're tackling a topic that really hits home in every community. The complex challenges swirling around the U.S. education system. If you're a school manager, an educator, maybe a parent or administrator, you're probably feeling these pressures, these ripple effects almost daily.
Absolutely. And what's really striking is how these aren't just separate problems, they weave together, feeding into each other, creating this self-reinforcing cycle.
A cycle, right.
So our goal today is to unpack that complex web, but more than just identifying the problems, we want to lay out a possible path forward, a sort of multi-pronged approach for building a more resilient future for education.
Okay, a path forward. I like that. So let's start with, well, a really foundational piece of this crisis, the teacher shortage. What are we actually seeing there?
The figures are quite concerning, actually. Recent analysis around mid-2025 showed nearly 1 in 8 teaching positions across the country were either empty or filled by someone without full certification.
1 in 8.
And it's not just about getting new people in the door, it's also high attrition, experienced teachers leaving the profession. Often it's cited as deep dissatisfaction.
Dissatisfaction. Is it just pay, or is there more to it?
Well, what's interesting is that while pay is definitely a factor, some analysis suggests it's maybe not the only big driver. Things like a lack of autonomy in the classroom and just being buried under administrative tasks, that seems to be a huge part of it too.
Okay, that makes sense. Lack of autonomy, administrative burden, that links teacher well-being directly to classroom stability, doesn't it?
It does. And when educators are stretched that thin, feeling that burned out,
Then it inevitably affects the students. Which brings us to the student mental health crisis we keep hearing about. How are these connected?
it's a direct link. When teachers are overwhelmed, their capacity to provide the holistic support students need is just diminished. And the stats on student mental health are alarming.
I've seen some of those.
Yeah, like 60% of students reporting daily stress and 40% of high schoolers feeling persistently sad or hopeless. It's significant.
40%. And the support systems.
That's the other side of the coin. The national student-to-counselor ratio is hovering around 376 to 1.
Which is much higher than recommended.
Much higher. The recommendation is 250 to 1. So you have this huge gap, meaning many students who need help just aren't getting access to it promptly or sometimes at all.
So we've got stressed teachers, stressed students, and then there's technology. It offers so much potential, but it also seems to, well, highlight existing problems.
It really is a double-edged sword. On one hand, you see projections like the AI in education market booming, potentially reaching over $41 billion by 2030. Huge opportunities there.
Billions, yeah.
But at the same time, you still have this persistent digital divide. Many students lack reliable internet access at home, and even with tools like generative AI, AI that creates content.
Like ChatGPT and similar tools.
Exactly. Its use is skyrocketing among college students, like 88% using it, but only about 36% have actually received any formal training on how to use these powerful tools effectively and ethically.
So there's a gap between access, or at least usage, and actual guidance.
The critical gap.
Okay, so teacher shortages, student mental health, the digital divide. What's the thread pulling all these together? What makes it so hard to break this cycle?
I think if you zoom out, a major factor exacerbating all of this is persistent funding instability. The heavy reliance on local property taxes, it just creates these massive disparities between districts. You see districts primarily serving Black and Latino students, for example, receiving significantly less money per student, sometimes up to $2,700 less.
Per student. That adds up fast.
Massively. And that underfunding isn't just an abstract number. It directly impacts student achievement, yes, but also teacher burnout because there's less money for support staff, for resources, for professional development, even basic supplies sometimes. It's a feedback loop.
A really tough feedback loop. Okay, so it's clear these issues are deeply tangled. But you mentioned a path forward. After outlining all these challenges, what does that look like? What's this framework?
Right. So based on looking at potential solutions, a sort of three-part framework emerges. It's centered on 1, robust investment and policy reform, 2, comprehensive professional development and support for educators, and 3, a real commitment to more rounded, holistic student care.
Okay, 3 parts. Let's break that down. First, investment and policy reform. What does that actually mean in practice for, say, an educator or an administrator?
Well, beyond the usual lobbying, some really impactful approaches involve things like community-led data visualization campaigns.
Data visualization.
Yeah, showing local taxpayers and policymakers very clearly the human impact of underfunding. These campaigns can actually be quite successful, sometimes more so than traditional methods. And educators can also be proactive, seeking partnerships with local businesses or nonprofits to bring in resources, acting as advocates.
So getting creative with demonstrating the need and finding resources. Okay, that feels actionable. What about the second part, professional development and support? How does that help with, say, the teacher shortage and burnout?
This is about empowering educators. For workload stress, it's about practical things. Intentionally setting boundaries between work and life, ruthlessly prioritizing tasks, and using student data smartly, like quick, low-stakes check-ins.
Not necessarily big formal tests all the time.
Exactly. Using that ongoing low-stakes data to adjust teaching in real time. It informs instruction and saves a lot of that administrative time spent on more cumbersome evaluations.
Makes sense. And how does PD tie into student mental health?
It's about equipping educators. Building those strong, positive student relationships is key. Integrating simple mindfulness practices into the day. Having really clear protocols for when and how to refer students to mental health professionals.
Okay, and technology fits in here too.
Definitely. The advice is often, start small, be intentional, don't try to adopt everything at once. Pick one or two tools that genuinely support learning goals. Maybe leverage AI for efficiency, creating quizzes, drafting lesson plans, freeing up teacher time.
Freeing up time, right?
And crucially, teaching digital literacy, not just how to use the tool, but how to evaluate online information, understand data privacy, integrating it into the curriculum.
Got it. So that brings us to the third part, a commitment to more rounded student care. What does that encompass?
This really ties it all together. It's about creating an environment where students can genuinely thrive, not just academically. Thinking about comprehensive social-emotional learning programs, ensuring things like accessible nutrition at school, actively building inclusive school cultures where every student feels they belong.
So it's the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. When educators feel supported through good PD, when funding is more equitable and stable, when tech is used wisely, the whole environment gets better for students. And look, if smart investments can simplify or automate some administrative tasks, teachers get that invaluable time back.
Time to focus on the students' broader needs, their well-being, their actual learning.
Precisely. Time to do the core job, reduce their own stress, and ultimately help students learn and thrive.
This deep dive really underscores that connection, doesn't it? Tackling these issues together through that kind of coordinated three-part approach feels like the way toward a more resilient, fair, and effective education system. So maybe the thought to leave everyone with is this. Thinking about your own specific role, whether you're in the classroom and leadership, part of the wider community, how can you contribute to strengthening one piece of this framework? How can you help break that cycle and foster a brighter future for education?